March 9th, 2026. And what started as a disagreement about a music battle has officially left the internet. It has crossed a threshold that most people who were watching this story thought it would never cross. Because as of the last 48 hours, this is no longer just a beef that lives in comment sections and Instagram stories and blog posts. There is now footage, real footage, circulating on social media right now of individuals connected to 50 Cent's network in the physical vicinity of TY's mansion in Atlanta. And that single piece of footage has changed the temperature of this entire situation in a way that no diss track and no headstone post ever could. Because diss tracks are art, because social media posts are content. But when you show up in someone's city, near someone's home, in the same week that a 21-year-old released a song that went viral, calling out one of the most strategic and most dangerous competitors in the history of this music industry, that is a different kind of message. That is a message that does not need a caption. That is the kind of message that 50 Cent has been delivering throughout his career to people who underestimated what he was actually capable of. And right now, on March 9th, 2026, the entire hip-hop world is asking the same question. What exactly were they doing there? Was this a coincidence? Was this a signal? Was this the same playbook 50 ran on Jim Jones just days earlier, showing up in someone's physical space to let them know the walls between online and offline are thinner than they think? The world was not prepared for this beef to move from screens to streets. And now that it has taken that step, nothing about what comes next is predictable. Not for T.I., not for King Harris, and not for anyone watching this story unfold in real time. Before we go any deeper, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell icon right now because this story is moving by the hour and you do not want to miss the next development when it drops. Now let us get back to it. To understand the full weight of what that footage means, you have to understand every step that led to this moment. You have to go back to the beginning, not just to last week. Not just to King Harris releasing Made Man on February 24th. You have to go back to the original conversation, the original plan, the original moment where a private agreement between two men became a public humiliation and started a chain of events that nobody involved fully controlled once it was set in motion. T.Y., Clifford Joseph Harris Jr., one of the most important voices in the history of Atlanta and Southern hip-hop, had been pushing for a versus battle with 50 Cent for years. And not quietly, openly, consistently, with the kind of conviction that tells you this was not a promotional angle or a publicity stunt, but something personal. Something T.I. believed in at the level of legacy. A versus is a live streaming event where two legendary artists play their greatest records side by side, back to back, letting their catalogs speak for themselves. No fighting, no battle rapping in the traditional sense. Just the music, just the catalog, just the history. Wished T.I. wanted that moment with 50 Cent because he believed in what it would mean for both of their legacies and for the culture that both of them had helped build. What he says happened next is what turned a cultural aspiration into a personal grievance. T.I. appeared on $1 Million Worth of Game, the podcast hosted by Gilly the Kid and Wallow, and he laid out the story in detail. He and 50 Cent had been in Los Angeles together. Not just socially, they were in business discussions. When they were pitching television shows and movies together, two moguls from different coasts who had both built their names far beyond their original catalog of music. During those conversations, the versus idea came up. T.I. says 50 was receptive. He says they discussed it. He says the plan was mapped out, that T.I. would raise it publicly first, and then 50 would respond to confirm. The handshake was made, at least in T.I.'s understanding. Well, and then when T.I. followed through and raised the idea publicly on Nightcap Live with Shannon Sharp and Chad Ochocinco, saying plainly that he had reached out and 50 was ducking the smoke, something strange happened. 50 Cent acted like he had no idea what T.I. was talking about. He acted confused. He acted like the private agreement had never existed. And in that gap, in the space between what T.I. believed had been agreed to and the public performance of ignorance that 50 offered in response, is something between these two men broke permanently. T.I. did not swallow it quietly. He said on $1 Million Worth of Game that he no longer had respect for 50 Cent. Not because of the Verzoos being declined, but because of how it was declined. Because of the specific disrespect of a man pretending a private agreement never happened after T. I had already gone public with it. I felt played. He felt set up. And I does not carry that kind of thing in silence. Yet to 50 Cent responded the way he always responds when someone puts him on notice publicly. Not with a formal statement, not with a press conference. He went to Instagram and he started digging. He posted the old Crime Stoppers commercial that T.I. filmed in 2010, a public service announcement where T.I. asked people with knowledge of crimes to report that information to law enforcement. He posted a clip of T.I. testifying in a courtroom in a 2008 case. He captioned both with just enough language to direct the audience toward the conclusion he wanted them to draw, without having to state it directly. He did not need to add much. The implication was woven into the act of posting, and then he went to a comment section and typed 2 words, King Rat. In hip-hop culture, that is not just an insult. It is an accusation that strikes at the foundation of everything a man in this world claims about himself. It questions loyalty. It questions integrity. Or it questions whether every credential a man has ever presented is real or manufactured. And for T.Y., who has spent his entire career defending his authenticity and his credibility, being called King Rat in public was the kind of provocation that required a response at the same volume. T.I. responded. He wrote that only one of them was a rat in real life, and that he had 50's paperwork, and that his own transcript was available online. He told 50 to get in the box or stay quiet and live in fear. He called him soft. He said 50 had lost his respect. Punch and counterpunch. The language was escalating, but the arena was still recognizable. 2 veterans of this industry using the vocabulary they have always used when they have a problem with each other. Both dangerous, both calculating, both watching the other carefully. And then 50 Cent made a decision that changed who was in this fight. He posted a photograph of Tamika Tiny Harris, T.I.'s wife, an unflattering image. It captioned it with a message telling T.Y. to keep his name out of his mouth. And in that single post, 50 Cent pulled a civilian into a war she had never joined. Tiny Harris, Grammy-winning artist, founding member of Xscape, a woman with her own legacy and her own career that stands completely independent of her husband, had not said a word about 50 Cent. She had not inserted herself into this dispute. She was not a participant, and 50 Cent posted her photograph anyway. Because going after someone's family hits harder than going after the person themselves. He has always known this. He knew it then. The moment that photograph went up, a clock started, because King Harris was in that house. King Harris was 21 years old, the son of T.Y. and Tiny, a young man who had grown up on camera on VH1's T.Y. and Tiny the Family Hustle, a young man whose entire childhood had been documented for a national audience. He had grown up watching his parents navigate public conflict, public scrutiny, public opinion on every decision they ever made. But watching your parents navigate something and being equipped to navigate it yourself are very different things. When King Harris saw that photograph of his mother on 50 Cent's page, he did not reach for strategy. He reached for his phone. He pressed record, and everything that followed was the result of that one decision. Well, King Harris went to the comment section under 50's post and wrote 2 words, "Where your mama?" He knew exactly what those words meant. He knew that 50 Cent's mother, Sabrina Jackson, had been murdered when Curtis Jackson was 8 years old. He knew the weight of what he was invoking, and he used it. He did not stop at the comment. He went to his Instagram stories and kept going. He said 50 was posting his mama when 50's mama was dead. He said his mama was a legend, and he would say it to 50's face. And then he posted a picture of a headstone. He posted an image bearing the name Sabrina Jackson, and he wrote under it asking where 50's mother was. That was the moment the internet went silent in the specific way it does when something crosses a line that everyone felt, but nobody had written down. Blogs ran it within the hour. Every platform that covers this culture had it before sunset, and the reaction was not celebration. It was discomfort, the kind of quiet that falls over a room when something goes further than anyone wanted it to. Because underneath the celebrity and the beef in the social media theater What King Harris had referenced was a murder, an unsolved murder of a woman who died when her child was 8 years old. And using the grave of a murdered mother as a weapon in an Instagram dispute is a different category of act than anything that had come before it in this beef. Yet 50 Cent's response was the response of a man who has been through things that make social media warfare look like a different species of conflict. He posted a cartoon frog meme, LOL, 3 letters and a cartoon character. And every person who has ever watched 50 Cent operate in a beef understood immediately what that meme was not. It was not indifference. It was not him being unbothered. That frog meme was a man locking in. It was a man deciding in real time exactly what the situation had just handed him and how he intended to use it. The chamber was being loaded, the timeline was being set, and 50 Cent, who has been in 26 years of public conflicts and has never once run out of ways to respond, was beginning the process of constructing whatever was going to come next. What came next was layered and methodical in the way that 50 Cent's responses always are. He posted a graphic that mocked both King Harris and Tiny Harris together. He captioned another post promoting his 2026 Broadway production of August Wilson's Joe Turner's Come and Gone, which he executive produced with opening night scheduled for April 25th, with language widely interpreted as a direct shot at King and Tiny. The caption referenced bad BBLs and albino kids and an absence of rappers, which the internet immediately parsed as a multi-target insult delivered under cover of what appeared to be a legitimate promotional post. That is the refinement of someone who has been doing this for a very long time. Insults that look like something else from a distance. Precision deployed with plausible deniability built in. King Harris kept going. He was not going to let 50 respond without answering back. He went to his Instagram and started pulling up everything he could find on 50 Cent. Minty, he posted about 50's 2000 shooting. He brought up the domestic violence case from 2013, sharing a photo of 50 in court with a caption suggesting that 50 only applied pressure to women. He brought up the situation with Lil' Kim, accusing 50 of going after her after she rejected him. He brought up the moment Kanye West outsold 50 in their famous sales competition. He was going through the archive. He was building a case. He was throwing everything at the wall to see what would stick. To try to shift the narrative, to reframe 50 as the villain of this story rather than the man who had been handed ammunition by King's own headstone posts. But here is what experienced observers of 50 Cent's beefs understand, that King Harris was still learning in real time. You cannot win a paper war with 50 Cent by pulling up old information he has already survived. He has been through every one of those moments. The shooting, the court cases, the Kanye competition, the relationship drama. He has been dragged through all of it publicly, and he is still standing. The scar tissue from surviving those things is part of what makes him impossible to wound with historical receipts. He does not flinch at the archive because he already lived through what is in it. Meanwhile, T.I. was operating in the space that matters most in this culture. He went to the studio. On February 22nd, he dropped a roughly 100-second preview of a track called War, produced and built around the energy of this conflict. He did not name 50 directly in that preview, but the lines were pointed and the internet filled in the blank without any difficulty. That track was positioned as a potential part of his final album, Kill the King, which T.I. has said will be his farewell to the rap game. That detail is significant. T.I. has called himself King of the South since his first album. The title Kill the King comes from chess. Because in chess, the object is to eliminate the king. So T.I.'s final statement to the rap world is called Kill the King, and it is being shaped in part by this very conflict. This is not throwaway beef content for T.I. This is legacy material. This is how he is choosing to close the chapter. He followed War with a second track called The Right One, in which he went after 50 Cent's former girlfriend, Daphne Joy, and her past relationship with Diddy. That was a calculated shot. It was not random. With the Daphne Joy's connection to Diddy carries specific weight in 2026 given everything that has emerged around Diddy in the last several years. I was using that connection to apply pressure on 50 Cent through his personal history, weaponizing a relationship that 50 has never fully addressed publicly. That is a veteran using the full toolkit, not just anger, research, context, timing. I was letting this beef make his music sharper and more targeted with every release. Wow, then King Harris did something that moved this from social media warfare to a different level entirely. On February 24th, 2026, he released Made Man, a full diss track, on streaming platforms, with a music video snippet posted to social media. The track took direct shots at 50 Cent, addressed the disrespect toward Tiny, and positioned King Harris not just as a son defending his family, but as someone staking his own claim in this conflict as an artist. The song circulated, people were sharing it. More hip-hop platforms ran it. The comment sections were full of takes about whether King had the bars to back up the energy he had been putting out on social media. Made Man became the primary piece of evidence in that debate. And while the verdict was mixed, the fact that it was in the conversation at all meant that King Harris had successfully inserted himself into the story as more than just a TOY's son. He was now a participant in his own right. But King did not stop with the music. He posted what he claimed were FBI documents, alleged paperwork that he said proved 50 Cent had cooperated with federal investigators in the 2009 murder case of Lodi Mack, also known as Lel Fletcher. He posted them on social media. He put them in the public timeline with his name attached to them. That was the moment this beef crossed from entertainment into something with potentially serious real-world implications. Yet posting alleged federal documents involving an active or former federal investigation, attaching your name and platform to the claim that those documents are authentic, that is a step that most people in this situation would have paused before taking. King Harris did not pause. He posted, and the internet caught it and ran with it before anyone could fully assess what they were looking at. And then something happened that nobody in this story expected. 50 Cent deleted his post. The man who is known above almost everything else for never retreating, never deleting, never backing down from anything he has posted, deleted the posts he had made about T1 and King Harris from his Instagram. They were gone, removed. The page that had been full of targeted content aimed at the Harris family was suddenly clear of it. And that decision, which looked on the surface like a de-escalation, read to everyone paying close attention as something else entirely. Wow, because 50 Cent does not delete out of regret. He does not delete because someone convinced him to be the bigger person. He deletes when he has decided that the public record needs to look a certain way. He deletes when he is preparing to move in a different direction and does not want the trail of what he was doing on social media to be part of the story that follows. He deletes strategically. And the timing of those deletions, now, right as King Harris was posting alleged federal documents and Made Man was circulating and the whole world was watching, made people ask immediately what 50 Cent was actually planning. King Harris noticed the deletions and kept going anyway. He reposted the allegations. He continued applying pressure even after 50's side of the page went quiet. He kept the narrative alive while 50 was doing something that nobody online could fully see. And then the footage surfaced. He had the footage of individuals connected to 50 Cent's network in the physical vicinity of TY's mansion in Atlanta. Not at a restaurant, not at a venue, near the mansion, near the private residence of the man who had been at the center of this conflict for 2 weeks. The footage circulated on social media, and the conversation shifted in a way that no amount of Instagram posts or diss tracks had managed to shift it. Because social media beef is one thing. But when people physically connected to one side of a conflict appear near the private property of the other side, in the middle of an active and escalating public dispute, the question of what that means becomes impossible to ignore. To understand why that footage lands with the weight it does, you have to understand the Jim Jones situation that 50 had just executed days before. On February 20th, 50 Cent posted surveillance footage from what appeared to be a podcast studio in the Bronx that showed Jim Jones repeatedly kicking at a door to gain entry. 50 did not just post the footage, he posted himself alongside the building owner. He posted eviction notices addressed to Jim Jones. He positioned himself as someone with ownership and access to the physical space where his opponent operated. He captioned it with a message telling Jim Jones that he would fix every door he had kicked or face physical consequences. The subtext was not subtle. He was saying that the space Jim Jones thought he controlled was actually accessible to 50 Cent's network. He was demonstrating that the line between online conflict and physical presence was something he could cross whenever he chose to. That was February 20th. 4 days later, King Harris released Made Man. Oh yeah, and somewhere into the timeline between that release and the present moment, footage emerged of 50 Cent's affiliates near T.Y.'s mansion in Atlanta. The pattern here is not coincidental to anyone who has studied how 50 Cent escalates conflicts. Physical proximity is a tactic. It is a message that does not require words. It communicates reach. It communicates access. It communicates that the walls around someone's private life are not as solid as they might think. Well, he used it on Jim Jones with a podcast studio in the Bronx. Now, something that looks like the same tactic is being documented near T.I.'s home in Atlanta, in a city where T.I. is not just a famous person, but a cultural institution. A man whose name is embedded in the identity of a community, a man who people in Atlanta will go to considerable lengths to protect. Even the South Fulton Police Department weighed in during this period, while posting on Facebook that the matter between T.I. and 50 Cent fell outside their investigative jurisdiction, and adding that no units would be dispatched for what they called vocabulary disputes. The post was clearly intended as humor, a department using a viral moment to generate some goodwill online. It drew laughs and reposts. But the fact that a police department felt it necessary to address this situation at all tells you something about how far this had reached into the public consciousness. This was not just a niche hip-hop story. This was Atlanta. This was a city with skin in this conflict because T.I. belongs to that city in a way that few artists belong to anywhere. And in the context of all of that, footage of 50 Cent's affiliates near T.Y.'s property in Atlanta was not going to land as a coincidence. It was not going to land as background noise. It was going to land as exactly what it looked like, which is a deliberate extension of the same physical proximity strategy 50 had deployed against Jim Jones, applied now to the man who had been his most visible public opponent of the year in that man's own city, near that man's own home. King Harris has not gone quiet in response to any of this. After Made Man dropped and after the alleged FBI documents were posted and after 50 deleted his posts, King kept posting. He kept pushing. He kept applying what pressure he could from his own platform. He has been described as a thorn in 50 Cent's side since entering this conflict, and that characterization is accurate in one sense. He has been persistent. He has been loud. He has been willing to keep going when a lot of people in his position might have stepped back. But there is a difference between being a thorn and being a threat. And 50 Cent, who has survived being shot 9 times and built an empire and outlasted every significant adversary he has ever faced in this industry, but does not experience a 21-year-old posting on Instagram as a threat in any real sense. He experiences it as material. He experiences it as something he can use. And the more King Harris posts, the more material he generates. That is the trap that King walked into. Every post is another piece of content that 50 can redirect, reframe, repost with his own caption, or use as evidence in whatever narrative he is constructing about the Harris family. T understands this on some level, which is why his public responses have largely been channeled through music. Let Him Know, the track he released earlier in this period, became his first solo Billboard Hot 100 entry in more than a decade, charting at number 50. The irony in that number is one that the internet did not miss, and War and the Right One continued to circulate as this beef generated attention across every platform that covers music and celebrity culture. T.I. is using this conflict as fuel for Kill the King, his final album, his farewell statement to a career that has spanned more than 2 decades. That is the calculation of a veteran who understands that the most dangerous thing he can do to 50 Cent in the long run is not match him post for post on Instagram, but channel the energy of this conflict into music that will outlast the beef itself. The generational dimension of this story is one that keeps surfacing in every conversation about it. 50 Cent is in his 50s. Wiki, he is a mogul with a production company, a Netflix film role alongside Kim Kardashian and Eva Longoria and Nikki Glazer and Brenda Song in a project titled The Fifth Wheel, a Broadway production opening in April, multiple active feuds running simultaneously including ongoing situations with Ja Rule and Floyd Mayweather, and a reputation built over 26 years of public conflict that he has never lost. King Harris is 21. He has made man on streaming platforms. Boom, he has an Instagram account. He has the famous last name and the inherited credibility of being T.I.'s son. These are not equivalent arsenals, and the footage near T.Y.'s mansion, whatever its precise meaning, is a reminder of just how unequal the resources on these two sides of this conflict actually are. There is a moment in every beef where the person with less to lose does the most damage because they have nothing left to protect. King Harris posting the headstone was that moment. But it was a move that came from a place with no floor, no calculation, no consideration of what it would cost. Just raw, protective fury aimed at a man who had disrespected his mother. And in its immediate impact, it worked. It generated attention. It made headlines. It made people talk. But in the longer game, in the game that 50 Cent has been playing for over 2 decades, it handed him exactly what he needed. A reason to direct the full weight of his attention and his network toward a 21-year-old who had not yet built the kind of armor that you develop from surviving real wars. The footage at the mansion is the latest indication that this full weight has been directed, that 50 Cent is not treating this as a minor episode in a busy week of multiple conflicts, that he is applying to this situation the same methodology he applied to Jim Jones. Yeah, the same attention to physical presence and demonstrated access that turns an online beef into something with different dimensions. Something that requires the people on the other side to ask not just how they are going to respond on social media, but how they are going to manage something that has stepped outside the screen and into the world where they actually live. As of March 9th, 2026, no official statements have been made about the footage by any party directly involved. Yet Tiny Harris has not posted publicly about any aspect of this conflict throughout its entire duration. T.I. is focused on his music and his album. King Harris continues to post and to maintain the energy that has characterized his entry into this fight. And 50 Cent is running a Broadway production, preparing a Netflix film release, managing 4 simultaneous beefs, and apparently directing affiliates to move through Atlanta in ways that the internet is now documenting and discussing in real time. What this story has become, from its origins as a conversation about a versus that never happened, is something that nobody involved in it intended when it started. It is no longer about the music battle. It is no longer even primarily about what was said on social media. It has become a story about what happens when the lines that are supposed to separate different categories of conflict, the line between online and offline, the line between adults and their children, to the line between music competition and personal warfare, start to disappear. When enough of those lines are crossed, when enough escalations happen in enough directions at once, the thing that results is not a beef anymore. It is something harder to contain, harder to resolve, and harder to walk back from. Ty built something in Atlanta over 2 decades. He built a name, a legacy, a family, a home, a presence in a community that regards him as one of their own. King Harris grew up in the safety of that legacy, which is part of why he had the confidence to step into this fight the way he did. He believed that the name and the reputation his parents built were armor enough. He believed that defending his mother publicly and loudly was the right move and that the consequences would be manageable. He was 21 years old and he was acting like it. And now there is footage of people connected to 50 Cent's network near the mansion where that family lives. And the question that everyone is asking right now on March 9th, 2026, is where exactly does this go from here? 50 Cent told fans around the time he deleted his post that he was looking ahead to a slow news day. He said it the way he says everything, with a layer of irony that makes it impossible to read as purely sincere. Winkle, a man who is running a Broadway production and a Netflix project in multiple simultaneous public conflicts, does not want a slow news day. He manufactures the news. He has been doing it his entire career. He manufactured it with Ja Rule. He manufactured it with Rick Ross. He manufactured it with Diddy. He is manufacturing it now with T.I. and with Jim Jones and with Floyd Mayweather, all at the same time because that is how he operates. That is his medium. Ian's conflict is not a distraction from 50 Cent's work. It is 50 Cent's work. And when King Harris stepped into his arena, King Harris stepped into the place where 50 Cent is most skilled, most experienced, and most dangerous. The surveillance footage dated from around February 19th has been described as adding fuel to a conflict that was already burning at an unusual temperature. The question is not whether it was intentional. With 50 Cent, things that look coincidental are rarely coincidental. Well, the question is what it signals about the phase of this conflict we are now entering. Whether this is the beginning of an escalation that goes further into the physical world, or whether it is a warning shot designed to make the Harris family understand the full scope of what they stepped into. Whether King Harris will answer it with more music or more posts, or a different kind of response entirely. Whether T.Y. who has been relatively measured throughout this entire period by channeling everything into his album, will feel compelled to step in front of his son in a more direct way if the physical dimension of this conflict continues to develop. What we know for certain on March 9th, 2026, is that this beef does not look like something that is winding down. It looks like something that has found a new gear. The music is out there. The documents are posted. The posts have been deleted and reposted, and the silence and the noise have both been noted and interpreted. And now there is footage that the internet is holding and examining and attaching to a narrative that is still being written in real time. The story that started with a phone call about a music event and a private agreement that one man says was broken has reached the front gates of a family's home in Atlanta. And whatever happens next in this story will happen fast. Equal because this is 2026 and nothing moves slow anymore, and 50 Cent has never in his life been the kind of man who lets the momentum stop before he is ready for it to stop. The internet is watching. Atlanta is watching. The Harris family is watching. And somewhere in the machinery of an empire that spans television and film and Broadway and music and social media, and apparently the physical streets of multiple cities, Curtis Jackson is watching too, deciding, calculating. Preparing the next move in a conflict that he did not start, but that he has already claimed as his own in the way he claims everything that comes into his orbit, completely, without apology, on his timeline and nobody else's. From the moment T.I. raised the idea of a versus and 50 looked the other way, a sequence was set in motion that has brought us here, to March 9th, to footage outside a mansion, to a 21-year-old's diss track on streaming platforms, to alleged federal documents on someone's Instagram story, to a police department making jokes on Facebook about vocabulary disputes, to a Grammy-winning woman's photograph being posted without her consent, to the grave of a murdered mother being invoked as a punchline, all of it connected, all of it part of one continuous chain of decisions and responses and escalations that nobody involved was fully in control of from the moment the first move was made. That is where we are. That is the story. And if the pace of this past week is any indication, whatever comes next is already in motion.